Love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen. Please be seated. Past Friday night, I had the honor and privilege of preaching at Holly's grandmother's funeral. And it was probably one of the most difficult sermons I've ever preached. Not because I was crying or anything like that. I got through it just fine. But because I was preaching to family. That makes things awkward sometimes. I mean, if I preach a bad sermon here, other than Holly and Enzo, all of you go home and I don't have to see you. Right? Like, you may want to send me a note on Facebook telling me how bad it was, but I can ignore that. Right? I knew I was going to go home to my mother and father-in-law's house, and if I messed up, if I made someone mad or offended someone, there was no escape. And so I had to be very careful and cautious in crafting the sermon, but it went well. Things don't always go well, though, do they? Sometimes we are put in difficult situations where you may not want to say something, but you know you have to. You may not want to deal with a situation, but you can't escape it. I think we all know that. We've all experienced it, and rarely is it fun. Rarely do we welcome those moments with open arms. It can't be avoided. This gospel text this morning can't be avoided, even though the wisdom of my professors told me to avoid it. I'm not kidding. As I was preparing and studying the text, I was reading and listening to some of my profs talk about it, and they all said, preach on the first half of it, ignore the second half, because the second half is a little tough. The first half is easy. You are the salt, right? The salt of the earth. You're the light of the world. It's this great sort of grand promise of your identity and what it means for you to be out and about, that you're letting your light shine. But that's not the part of the text that's been dealing with me all week. And so that's not the part I'm going to focus on, despite the advice of smarter people. Because that second half, I kind of can't avoid it. I have to deal with it because it's been dealing with me. And it's not an easy section. It's kind of ironic that it's in something called a gospel, because it's straight up law. Uncompromising law. Right? Jesus says he has not come to abolish the law or the prophets. He's come to fulfill it. And if anybody sort of takes away or relaxes these commandments, well, you're not going to be great in the kingdom of heaven, even if you squeak in. But unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter in. If that doesn't shake you, even as a Lutheran, you're not hearing it right. I think we're quick as Lutherans sometimes to point out to Baptists and Catholics and whoever else what scriptures are, make their theological systems difficult. Right? We're very quick at that. We're not as quick as acknowledging the ones that make our system a little difficult. Ones like the words Christ spoke during his Sermon on the Mount. Unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, these masters of the law, unless it's better than theirs, you're not getting in. That's tough to hear. It's tough for me to hear because I don't want to be righteous like they were. It's a lot easier for me and a lot more fun to not listen to the law. I'd rather ignore people. I'd much rather do my own thing. I would much rather not have to pay attention to the needs of my neighbors. I would rather not listen to what God has to say to me. I'd rather go my own way. if I'm being honest. I think if all of us are honest in our own heart, we feel that same sort of pull. This following the law stuff, it's difficult. There isn't a person in this room that Christ doesn't accuse with that statement. There isn't a person breathing that isn't accused by that statement of the law. That your righteousness has to exceed that of experts in the law if you're going to make it into the kingdom of heaven. It's uncompromising. There is no escape. Every week at the SEM in St. Louis where I went, we have chapel services every day, and professors will preach on the lectionary text throughout the week. And one of the profs who preached decided, like me, not to take the easy way out, but to deal with this difficult side of the text. And he told a story, and I wish it were my story, but it's his. When he was a new convert to Christianity, he heard this preacher make a statement that God will never give you a command He doesn't also give you the power to fulfill. And he said he remembered that sermon 40 years later because it was the first time in his head it clicked that not everything out of a preacher's mouth is worth listening to. The guy had been close. The statement is almost right, but not quite. Rather, my professor suggested what he should have said is, God will never give you a command He Himself won't fulfill for you. I'll say it again. God will never give you a command He Himself won't fulfill for you. That's the reality of this text. You and I may not have been able to have righteousness that exceed that of the scribes and Pharisees, but Christ did. And when the law, in its uncompromising nature, demanded that payment be made, that it get its due, Christ steps in and fulfills that law by stretching out His arms and dying on a cross in your place and in mine. That's the gravity of the situation. That the law can never be bargained with. It actually has to be fulfilled. It has to be done. But Christ is the one who does it. And that becomes gospel for us because of our baptism, where He actually gives that righteousness that is greater than the scribes and Pharisees. He gives that righteousness to you and to me when that water is poured on us. That righteousness that is His own. And at the rail, He gives you the very forgiveness of sins that His life paid for, that the law would never give you for free, but that He bought with His innocent and precious blood. That hymn we just sung is one of my favorite hymns. I think most of you know that. But what you may not know is my favorite verse is verse 3. Thy strong word bespeaks us righteous, bright with Thine own holiness. Glorious now we press toward glory, and our lives, our hopes confess. That verse is this gospel text in a nutshell. That Christ has spoken us righteous. He has fulfilled the law and said, Emily, that righteousness is yours. You are actually glorious now, even as you press toward glory. And because of that, you can be salt and light. Your life can confess to the world. See, it probably would have been a lot easier for me to get to this point in the sermon if I just went with our epistle text. because we're ending up at the same place. That we resolve to know nothing except Christ and Him crucified for us. See, nothing was more difficult than having to fulfill the law. Nothing was more difficult than having a righteousness greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, and nothing was going to stop Christ from earning that righteousness and giving it to you. That's why we're here. Not to give God something, not to fill up a bank account, not to try to be better than the scribes and Pharisees, but to receive the very thing we could never earn on our own: the righteousness of Christ Himself. Amen.